Awesome, guys. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in for yet another episode of PitchGround Webinar Daily with Product Founders. Today, we have Dominic and Dieter with us. Guys, if you can just take a moment to introduce yourself before we get started, I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, so hi, everyone. Dominic Finney here, founder at Audio Harvest. My background is in ad technology for around 20 years. Started at Netscape way back when they had 99% of the browsers. I've worked for global companies in both US and across Europe. And then around 10 years ago, I moved into the founder market, set up a business in the panel digital analytics market, which I eventually sold to a US company and exited. And now moved on to Audio Harvest, where we're actually in the SaaS-based business and essentially working with data to enable businesses to get involved and make money from audio. That's my story.
Oh, did I just want to take a couple of moments to introduce yourself as well?
Sorry, were you talking to me?
Yeah, if you can just introduce yourself as well, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, so I'm Dieter. I'm a co-founder together with Dominic, and I have a tech background. I'm originally from Belgium. I worked in various companies doing mostly Java backend development. Ended up in Stockholm working for Spotify for a while, but then I met Dominic and we started Audio Harvest, and that's how I end up here.
Awesome. It's great to always learn, how the founders have always met. So over to you, Dominic.
Great. So I'm just gonna share my screen. I'm assuming everyone can see my screen.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So essentially, the presentation today is around how to use audio to drive sales and marketing performance. And the great thing about audio is that it's quite greenfield. So it's a new territory, and what that means is there's real opportunities to sell to customers and to monetize your assets, because a lot of your competitors aren't there. The second thing is there's lots of different ways that you can monetize within audio. You have essentially the advertising, which is the biggest market, worth around 7 billion globally on that. But you also have marketing, where you can sell products and promote those, and we'll go through that as well. But you can also create a subscription model, which historically has been dominated by people such as Spotify and iTunes, you expect. So around $4.6 billion that's worth globally, but as you expect, they own the lion's share of that. But that is changing as the technology enables businesses of all sizes to create subscription models and monetize those. And so today we're just going to talk about the different ways that you can actually create and then monetize audio content, or use technology to help your customers monetize and make money that way as well on that. And we'll provide examples as well as ways of doing that. So we're going to do some intros. It's going to be very brief because we've already done that. And then we'll go through the main topic, which I talked about how we do that. Then we'll talk briefly particularly about how we do that and how we can help on that. And then Dieter will do a very quick demo just to show you the tool in action and what we mean by the ways that we help monetize. Quick Q&A, and then we'll hand back over to PitchGround to go through from there. So we've already talked about this. As we've said, my background is worked in big technology, digital tech businesses. I've worked for major audio companies, Pandora and Acast, so quite steeped in the audio market. And Dieter obviously has got great experience at Spotify, where he helped stand up their podcast business. So, really real skills in this space. So the key question, does audio really drive revenue? Absolutely. Up until relatively recently, it's been a lot easier if you're a big brand or name. Essentially, it's known for Spotify, Joe Rogan, huge audiences, and they drive ad revenues within that. And you can see that with the Ringer, where for 120 million downloads, so that earned 15 million ad subscription revenue. And as we all know, Joe Rogan made literally hundreds of $millions from the deal that he signed with Spotify. But what's more relevant for today is can smaller businesses and different size businesses across the spectrum make money? And absolutely. What you need to do is have a different strategy and approach to doing that. So you really need to hone in on the value you deliver. So what is the audio content you have or you're sharing or producing? And what value does that have to someone either buying that audio content or attracting a customer to that audio content so you can sell services or products to them? And then the other thing is that you have to be smart and you use lots of different ways to monetize. So typically it's not the Joe Rogan route where you just sign a massive deal because he has a huge audience. You need to monetize usually in a number of different ways. And finally, what I'd say is you really need to look at cost versus return. So before you decide to go down this road is work out how much is the cost of developing and monetizing this content and what is my return going to be so that this actually is a viable enterprise for people entering it. And just on the right hand side, you can see literally out of nowhere a few years ago came a podcast on the left essentially, and that makes over 50,000 a month alone just through Patreon. And they also do e-commerce. So they sell shirts and do regular live shows off the back of it. So they make significant money, both through the audio itself and people paying for that, but also through selling goods and events off the back of it as well. And we're going to talk about some examples that we do ourselves in that area. So key ways to monetize. There's three fundamental ways to monetize audio content. There's the sales. So essentially you use audio to sell to your customers. So you have customers and you use audio to reach out to them and market to them. And the second one is to charge a subscription. So you create or provide audio content and you charge people to listen to that content. And finally, the biggest of them all, which is advertising. And as I said, that's worth $6 to $7 billion within that. So it's a huge, huge market. And so starting with sales and marketing, audio works across all parts of the sales funnel. So it's a great way for you to create awareness, consideration, conversion, loyalty, and advocacy. So in terms of awareness, once you produce audio content, that can be distributed. So everyone thinks that it just goes out as a podcast, and that is true, and that's a fundamental area to go, or it goes on streaming audio sites. But once you produce that audio content, you can actually share all of that on social, and that's a great vehicle for creating awareness. Secondly, once you produce all the audio content, it will get found in Google search if set up correctly. So you need to make sure that your descriptions and tags work well, and that makes it very, very discoverable. And that's all awareness there. And finally, there's the on-site, which we'll go through, where you can create audio content on site to create awareness. In terms of consideration, audio is extremely strong in this area because effectively, if you take the podcast example, you have people subscribing to a podcast, listening to information about your product or service for 3 to 7 minutes in a highly engaging environment. And that's a great way to lead people onto the path to purchase. And finally, on this kind of key part of the funnel, you also have audio promotion. So within your audio content, you can literally sell goods and services or have promotional ads driving that. And finally, it drives loyalty. So for example, with all podcasts, people will subscribe to those and they will then get regular updates on that audio content. So audio works across all parts of the sales funnel, which is great. So it makes it highly efficient and effective. So finding the customer. So in the first part of the sales funnel, it's all about lead generation. So how does audio do that? As I mentioned, discoverability. So every piece of audio content you produce, if you set it up correctly and you put it into Google Podcast, Google search will list that. So every piece of new audio content you produce will be out there and found and will get you an audience. Secondly is, once you have that audio content, you can literally create links and share that across all of your social networks. So you have a big following in Facebook, you can create bite-sized chunks of audio and use that to engage your customers and sell services and products. And then for podcasts, as we all know, there are huge audience hubs with which you can post your podcast. So Spotify and iTunes being the biggest, which literally have millions and millions of audiences. And then finally, on-site engagement, where essentially you create audio content on page. So getting people to engage on site and listen to content is a very sticky way to get customers in and create leads. So this is an example of a client of ours, but Hewlett Packard. So essentially here, you can see that for their podcast, not only is it listed in Google, but you get on the right-hand side, the branding of the podcast. And then below that, you get 3 of the podcast episodes. So in terms of branding and awareness, this is amazing. You're basically dominating the page. And every one of their podcast episodes will get a listing in Google. So every time someone's searching for something related to that content, they're going to be found. So that's a great way to drive awareness. Consideration. So this is a really strong area for audio. So essentially, once you've got people listening to your audio content, it's a great way to engage your customers and educate them about your products and services and establish loyal customers. So essentially, you've got someone signed up and you start to explain the value of what you do. So if you're an SEO business, you can start to talk about SEO and why it's important to them. And then you can encourage them to become customers of yours. So we have a good example of that here. So the Livingston Group is a client of ours, is a £50 million cloud-based technology services business. So for them, it's vital to lead business decision makers on the path to purchase. So for them, our technology creates in real time customer insights and success stories as podcast episodes. And what that's done is that's built up a really loyal following of customers that listen to those on a weekly basis. So they've got 18,000 views of people listening to that, and that's driven sales uplift. So as people who've listened to these podcasts, they've understood more about the service, what the value is, and ultimately they've been led to buy the products and services that they provide. And finally, it's all about the money. And where audio delivers is in promotion. So literally having ads that promote goods, and in advertising, which is the biggest part of the market. So here we have an example of a client of ours, Girls Into Coding, which Dieter's going to go through as an example when we do the demo. So essentially, Girls Into Coding are events-based business, and what they do is they create events and courses to enable girls to become more effective and enter the industry as coders. What we do is we create in real time for them an audio podcast, an on-site audio for them that talks about the events that are coming up and the events that have happened. And what they do is they use our pre and post-roll audio ads function to promote events. So they are using audio to effectively promote events that they can make money from. So that's just a kind of great example. Literally, that's a startup business. They've been running for less than 2 years, founded by 2 people, and they're growing at a rate in the UK and across Europe now. The other smart way that one of our clients is doing audio to monetize is they have actually bought a license offers. This is the Digital Voice, and they have a roster of clients who want to communicate with their customers, and they actually sell on our platform as a managed service. So they say to their clients, we will manage your audio content for you for a fee. So that's a license deal. So they're taking our platform and they're making money on top of that, which is super smart. And it works for us as well because it's getting them to use a higher volume of our product. And then finally, one of the biggest ones for mobile in the world. So in terms of donations, mobile is the biggest driver of that. And we work with Mary's Meals, which is a global charity. So they have an extremely popular podcast, mainly because of the human interest stories. So they help deal with famine across the globe. So as you can see with this one in here, it's in Madagascar, they're addressing an issue there. So they're high interest human stories. And what people do is they listen to those stories, and then there's messages at the end about donating to those. So it's a really great driver for donations there. And we're moving on to subscriptions and how you can use subscriptions, not only to sell paid subscriptions, but you can also use it to drive loyalty as well on that side. So here is an example with the London Vermouth Company. So they essentially have created the cocktail hour. And all you have to do is with this is as soon as you click follow, which everyone can set up on their podcast and on-site audio content, that user will then automatically get every audio episode, new episode that you produce. So what you now have is a subscriber to your service, and you're driving loyalty. So even if they forget to read the content, they will get a ping saying, here's the next episode of podcasts from the London Vermouth Company. So that's a great way to drive loyalty through subscriptions. But also it's great if you can make money from subscriptions. So with that, typically it's only tended to work in the past if you're a major brand and you have great content. So people typically, if it's some major news publication or brand, they will pay for that within that. But it can also work for startup brands. So this is literally a dating app that came out of nowhere, and they charge a subscription where simply they talk and advise around dating within that. So they have a fee that they charge. I'm based in Sweden, so they charge literally 30 kroners, which is £3 a month on that. And they have hundreds of thousands of people subscribing to that, so they make significant revenues through paid subscriptions. This is an example of literally starting up and making your own business. It has to be said that they are very successful because that is their main business and they have invested time in that. So if you are going to go down this paid subscription route, it does need an investment of time and be something that is almost always your main business. Doing it as a side hustle is doable, but more of a challenge, I would say. And then finally, the biggest category, which is audio advertising. So audio advertising has been around for a very long time, is a significant market. So you have 7 billion in audio in general. The podcast market alone is worth 1 billion. And the main ways that you can make money from audio advertising is to sell sponsorships, and then is to sell ads like pre and post roll, and to do display ads as well, which are companion ads. So essentially, if you have a podcast or you have on-site streaming, you can have a companion ad there, but people can click on essentially. So in terms of selling sponsorships, these are normally done by the bigger publications historically. So the Daily is sponsored by Verizon. So that's a significant deal. But we are seeing more and more mid-size publishers starting to enter this market. So we work with WFM, which is a publisher in the property sector, and we are enabling them to sell sponsorship deals as well. So it's that market, again, as this whole audio market matures and there's so many opportunities, more and more different sized businesses are entering the market. But if you want to make it easier and you want to find a scalable, low resource way to sell advertising, so you have a podcast and essentially you don't want to sell it yourself, or you just want to kind of aggregate it quite quickly, there are a number of networks out there that can sell that for you. So Acast is the biggest sales network for audio in the world, essentially. So you go to them and they aggregate both the advertisers, the brands to do that, and then they manage the sale of that. So they have, for the actual advertiser that's looking, they provide lots of content and a sizable audience, and for the podcasters producing that, they provide the revenue demand. So they're essentially monetizing. That's a really quick and easy way if you want to look to monetize audio content that you have, and especially podcasts. And then obviously you couldn't have a presentation talking about monetization of audio without Spotify. So Spotify is the biggest driver of revenue. They make a huge amount also from subscriptions, as we all know, within that. And they do a whole bunch of different ways of doing that. So they're very innovative. So they now have clickable ads within their player as well. So both you listen to the ad at the same time and you can click on it, and it's highly interactive. So that's a great example. And the interesting thing about audio is the CPMs are much higher than display. So if you go in on display network buys, you're literally selling ads for cents. But the CPMs for audio are from $15 and upwards. So the actual yield that you can make and the margin you can make on audio advertising is very, very good. And especially if you get into the sponsorship space, that is really, really good margin there. So in summary, the key takeouts are, of course, it's easy for the big boys to make money, but that market is now changing, and now everyone, whatever size of business, shape of business, has an opportunity. What you have to do is be smart and realistic about how you monetize. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, what is your value that you deliver in terms of to the user? What you're either going to sell a service or a product. And then once you've worked that out, you need to work out cost versus return to ensure that you're making money, and then maximize the different channels that you can use to make money from this. And what I would recommend is use cost-effective partners. So, for example, we're a SaaS-based business, so we're a really effective partner. But also, Acast is an even more cost-effective partner because they will not charge you any money. They simply charge a commission on every ad sale they make. So that means you have no outlay to make on those kinds of investments. So if you're smart about your monetization partners, you can have a really low cost base and you can have a decent return on that low cost base as well. So now I'm just going to talk very quickly, give an overview about how we support audio monetization, essentially. So our platform is essentially a real-time platform that takes all of the digital content that businesses produce, and we transform that into audio content that we can produce and distribute in real time across social, on-site, and podcast. And what this means is you have a really low-cost way of creating audio content that you can either use to sell products and services to your customers, or that you can use to sell ads and sponsorship off the back of within that. And essentially, ours is an end-to-end platform. It's self-serve, so all you have to do is put the URL in, and then our platform will kick in and produce the content and deliver that on the fly for you. It's also an always-on platform, so if you can set the algorithm and it will automatically produce and distribute audio content. What that means for businesses is two fundamental things. One is the cost is extremely low, so it's a fraction of what it would cost to produce and distribute your own podcast. And the second thing is it's highly scalable. So it's literally taking content you've already produced and distributing that. And that means that you can create an audio business very, very quickly and start monetizing at a very, very low cost base. And the ways that we create value is we have a whole ton of clients that use our product literally to market to their customers and use it to sell products, drive people on the path to purchase, use sales promotion and ads. So we provide pre and post roll ads within our service. That's all part of the paid cost, so it's no additional cost. And then people use it to drive donations and as a license model. So we work with agencies that then buy a license from us and then sell on that service to their customers. So there's a whole number of ways that we help monetize. And with that, I'm going to pass you over to Dieter, who's just going to do a quick demo of the platform and show you a couple of examples of how we're helping monetize for clients. So I'm just going to stop sharing.
Awesome, Dieter. Before we dive into that, I have a few questions from you, Dominic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there were some questions that also got DM'd to me. So my first question is, when is the right time to really get into audio? Because it's a time-consuming process and it takes time to see the results, right? So many times you could start seeing some good traction coming in, just like how SEO works, right? You put in that effort and you start seeing the results after, let's say, a year, 2 years. And when those kind of results come in, they'll just shock you, right? They'll give you the highest sort of ROI. When is the right time in your business? Because it does take a lot of resources.
That's a great question. And I think, now is the time, because actually technologies like ours, it no longer takes a lot of resource. So literally our new customers, their job is they put their URL for their website into our platform, and then our algorithm technology produces and distributes all of the audio content. So what used to be a lot of work, and still is if you want to do it manually, you can be up and running with podcasts and audio content across social, on-site, within a day. And the reason it takes a day is not our platform, because our platform will have distributed that to all of the major distributors within half an hour. We're literally waiting on iTunes, Spotify, and Google, etc., to approve it. So the cost and labor has disappeared. To the second part of your question, yes, it does take time and investment to build that audience. So that's still there. You have to get the right tags, and we help with that, and you have to nurture that audience. But we work across a range of clients. I've just shown you, we work across technology companies, startup companies, events companies, donations companies, and all of these are finding that this is a really useful additional way for them to sell to their customers and reach their customers. So I would say the majority of our customers are using it as a way to market to their customers within that. And they're finding this is a great way to lead people on the path to purchase. But then we do, as we showed with a couple of examples, have people that are using it to sell events and drive donations as well. So it just depends on which vertical you're in. And that's why I said at the beginning, what is your business? What do you fundamentally sell? And can audio help that? Because not every time can it help it. And if it doesn't help it, then just don't use it. But if your customers are there, then you should be using it. And then what I would say is that with over 1 billion people listening to podcasts and 42% of LinkedIn business decision makers listening to podcasts regularly, I think the bigger danger is not being there, because you're literally not being present where your customers are, and your competitors will be, and they will be selling to them.
Awesome, perfect. So I'll let over to take over the screen and share the product demo.
Yep, let me share my screen.
Well, if you have any questions, make sure that you ask in the Q&A tab. Please go ahead.
So what I will do is give a small overview of the UI of our tool. So it's going to be a little bit of a recap. Can you see my screen, by the way, now? Dominic?
I can.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah,
so it's going to be a little bit of a recap. So I'm basically going to go through the functionality of our tool. But we also added a few features. So I'll also demo those. So that'll be interesting for the people who already know the tool. So I will be doing this demo on an account of a customer of ours, which is called Girls into Coding. Dominic already mentioned this organization. So it's a nonprofit that basically wants to stimulate young girls to get into science and coding, basically. And they have an account on our platform. And so what you see here is the dashboard that you see after logging into our tool. When you set up a new account, we have an onboarding that will guide you through some steps to set up your account. So typically the first 3 steps here, we will guide you through during the onboarding. But let's go through the different sections of the UI. So step 1 is basically selecting a voice for your podcast. So we have a wide range of languages that we support. Each language has a number of voices. You can preview the voices, you can listen to the voices and pick the one that works best for your podcast or fits best with your company or your brand. Once you've done that, our tool will also automatically explore your website and basically find the different sections on your website. And you will get a list during the onboarding of the sections that we think are most relevant to create audio content from. And we will give you choice to basically include these articles or not. Having done that, we will get a list of articles. So this is one of the main views of our tool. You'll basically here, you see all the articles that we found on your website. You can inspect the articles. You can listen to the content we picked up. You can also preview the audio if you already created an audio file. So important to know is that we will grab the articles from your website, but we will process them in a way that they work well as an audio experience. So we'll remove everything that does not work well as a listening experience. For example, of course, media as images and video, we will take out of the content. Also, for example, quotes or something that blocks the flow of the article, we will remove. And usually that creates a pretty good experience. However, if you still want to tweak further, you can just go into an article and you can basically change whatever you want. You can change the title, you can give it a different description for your podcast. You can edit the content, of course, if there are certain phrases that don't really work well as a podcast episode, you can just change that. So you can fix it basically so it works better as a podcast. Once you're happy with your article, all you have to do is press the create audio file, and then you will see what you see here now. Basically, all the articles have a green tick and they are published. One important thing to note also is that you can basically put the tool in a full auto mode, or you can go in and manually control this process. So you can see here that the switch to automatically publish new articles is turned on. So what will happen is we will explore the website at regular intervals, and every time we find a new article, we will automatically import it into the tool. We will create an audio file out of it and add it to the podcast automatically. So this is basically like a completely hands-off experience. You set up the tool once, and then all your content, all your articles that you publish on your website will automatically end up as podcast episodes. So your podcast will basically be a mirror of the articles on your website. However, you can also just turn this off. And in that case, what will happen is we will still pick up the articles and import them into the tool, but you will have to manually publish them. So you can first go in, check the content, make sure everything is fine with you as a podcast, that the content is fine to be used as a podcast episode. And once you're happy, once you maybe edited the article a little bit, you just click the button, and then the rest of the process will happen, which is creating an audio file and adding it to the podcast. Speaking of the podcast, how does that work? So you have the content, you have the audio articles, you want to publish that content. And we basically have two ways to do that, but the main way to do that is to create a podcast and publish it on Spotify, on Apple, and on Google. So you can see here that this account has one podcast, and this podcast is published on all platforms. Creating a new podcast would be very easy. You just click the create podcast button, you upload a logo, you give it a title and a description. You need to pick some categories that will determine in what, where in the podcast catalog that your podcast will appear. And in the higher level accounts, you can also select which content ends up in the podcast. So I think in our plan A account, you only have one podcast that you can set up. However, in the other accounts, you can create multiple podcasts. And then we have a system where basically your articles are tagged with the section where we found the article. This is also something you can edit, by the way. You can just add a new tag if you want that. And then while setting up your podcast, you can select which tags end up in the podcast. So in this case, this is empty, which means that all new articles will end up in this podcast. But for example, here on this website, we have two sections. We have the coding events articles, and we have the tech education blog articles. So if we wanted to, we could create two podcasts for this and have each section end up in its own podcast. So that's a feature that we added quite recently. Once you're happy with your podcast, you can go into the podcast preview, and here you will see a web preview of the podcast. So why do I mention web preview? Because typically people will consume your podcast using, for example, Spotify, for example, the Apple iTunes player. So your podcast will always look a bit different depending on where people consume it. To give you an idea, this podcast published on Spotify. So Spotify kind of takes over the branding of the podcast. You can see that the logo is there. You can see that the title, the description is here, and we have the different podcast episodes. I think I have it here on Apple also. So this is the Apple podcast page for the same podcast. So you can see the styling is completely different. So that basically depends on where people consume your podcast. However, on this page, you can get an idea of like how your podcast will look in each client. So you can see the title, you can see the description, you can see the different episodes, you can listen to them, also inspect the titles and the description of the episodes. So this is basically where you check that your podcast is set up exactly as you want it. Once you're happy with that, again, Here, of course, this popular podcast is published, so we don't want to unpublish it. But on a new account, typically this button will say publish, you press publish, and then within about a day, your podcast will be live. I mentioned we have two ways to distribute content. One of them is the podcast, which is the main way, I think, to get your content out there. But another way also is to add a widget on your own web page. So again, if we look at the website from Girls Into Coding, if we look at a blog article, you can see that we have our Audio Harvest player here on the web page. So this offers visitors of the website a really flexible way. Of course, they can read the article, but if they'd rather just listen to it or maybe speed it up a bit and listen to it, they can just do that and they don't need to have their eyes on the screen. So that's another way to get your content out there. How to do that? For WordPress websites, we have a WordPress plugin. We are currently in the process of publishing this plugin in the WordPress plugin directory. So if you have a WordPress website, you can just go to the plugins section, search for the plugin, and then you will find it there in the future. Right now, you'll still have to just download the plugin from our website and add it to your website. Both ways are pretty easy, but we hope to make it even easier in the future by actually having it listed on the WordPress website. If you install the WordPress plugin, you basically don't have to do anything. You just install the plugin, activate it, and you will get the Audio Harvest player for free on all your blog articles. Note that you do need an account. You do need to have an Audio Harvest account, and the player will only appear for the articles that you have actually published here in your article list. So that's an important thing to know. So we have a new feature. Our main business is basically taking articles from your website, using text-to-speech to convert them into audio files and publish them as podcasts. That makes it really, really fast and easy to create a podcast and get your content out there in audio format. However, we've had people ask us, hey, I also have this interview that I recorded and I want to add this to my podcast. So why don't you have a way to manage this? So we added this feature where you can actually upload an audio file. So this is very similar to creating a regular article. Again, you pick a title, you pick a description, you can tag it with a section, and then you just upload an audio file of your content, for example, a recorded interview. You press save, and you will get an article very similar to this in this audio file page here. And then for the rest, the process is very simple. Once, if you want to publish this article, you just press publish, and the audio file that you uploaded will get added to your podcast. I also need to mention that instead of publishing articles on your website and having them automatically import into Audio Harvest, you can also just create a separate audio episode from text. So this is very similar to uploading an audio file, but instead of uploading audio, you can just type text. And again, we will use text-to-speech to create a podcast episode out of that. So Dominic also mentioned the advertising and the call to action. This is what we call here in the UI pre-post roll. So basically this allows you to add some text that will be read out before or after each podcast episode. For example, this customer is using this to promote an event that is happening in the future. So if people listen to the podcast episodes, they will first hear basically a message, a call to action, telling the people, hey, there's this event coming, a little bit of promo talk around the event. And if you're interested, go to our website and sign up. And then after that, the content of the article is in the podcast. And in the end, also here, we simply have this brought to you by Audio Harvest read out. But here you can also do like some kind of closing message to your listeners. Again, you can ask them to sign up to an event or take any action. Go to your website maybe. So this you can basically use to, do some kind of call to action to your listeners. Finally, I just want to highlight the reporting. So of course, if you're publishing content, you want to know, are people listening to it? What is the engagement? So we have a reporting page here, which shows you basically how many times podcasts are played, how many times your podcast was opened. So this is a very interesting page to keep an eye on if you have content on our platform. This will basically tell you how engaged your customers are with you. And I think I covered everything with that. Dominic, what do you think? Did I miss anything? I think you're muted.
Oh, I think I absolutely love it. I think what we're going to do next is PitchGround has got, I think, probably hundreds and thousands of word of articles. So I think one of the best things I'll probably do is set up a case study of us actually using it and distributing across all of the blog contents that we have currently on our blog. One of the questions that I had was with regards to people who is it a way there where we can just set up, let's say, a blog/blog or URL where all the blogs are inside the application? Is there a way to do that? Or is it a way where I can just set up my sitemap, or I can share my sitemap inside Audio Harvest for the blogs and we'll just pull up all of the blog contents that way?
So yeah, if you're doing an onboarding of your website, we basically have, our technology will basically look what is the best way to find articles on your website. If you have a sitemap defined, we will use it. So that's definitely a very good way to get your content into our system. If you have a WordPress site, also typically we integrate very well with WordPress. So that will be a very good way also to get your content into our system. But we also basically have a fallback mechanism where our system basically browses your website and just searches for content that works well.
So in this case, PitchGround has a bit of unique setup where, since we have a custom platform, right? What we have done is we have set up WordPress in the backend, where then we have built out an HTML scraper, and we produce a static file out of it. And then /blog has got a static file that gets produced from our WordPress blog that we have set up in the backend. Because our entire tech is built on MeanStack, and we cannot really use WordPress with MeanStack, and we don't want to use something like blog.pitchground.com, right? We wanted to keep /blog structure for SEO purposes. So in this case, what and how Audio Harvest would really work and look like?
So that shouldn't be any problem. If you do onboarding, we will basically, again, explore your website. We will look how the website structure looks like, and we will definitely detect that /blog and see that the blog articles live there on your website. And
I think what Dieter's saying is at 99% of times, what's going on in the back end doesn't matter, because we just scrape and then reorganize. So our tool is designed to avoid all client complications. And it means that it's all done automated and scalable. So you literally recapture thousands, we organize them. We try to just reflect the structure of the website, because we believe that clients have designed that structure as the best way for their customers to access their content and sell products. And that should usually be consistent with audio.
Got it. Perfect. So I think that's what I'm going to do probably. And then I'm going to also share the entire case study. I think this is going to be one of the best ways to really share and start off, like, show people the power of audio distribution. But yeah, I think that was absolutely brilliant. Guys, in case if you have any questions, please drop them in the question tab below. I do have a couple of other questions out there. So one of my other questions is there any other way apart from this distribution that how can you sort of like start promoting these blog contents for your website? Is there any other like way in terms of kind of like pushing up these contents maybe?
Yeah, well, obviously we push it out onto the main platforms. So, 99% of audio content, that's not true. So 95% audio content is accessed through Spotify, iTunes. I can mention Google and Amazon, but they're small in this club. So our tool, just by doing that, is got huge access. But then what we do is search is massively important for this. So being discoverable, because what we're doing is we're creating thousands of pieces of audio content for some clients on the fly. And that's every one of those is an SEO opportunity. And so by using our tool to get it listed in Google Podcasts, so the reason we list in Google Podcasts is they will not show search results unless you actually listed in as a Google Podcast. And then making sure you obviously have the right meta tags and descriptions, but because we scrape the site, it reflects that. That is sharing and being discoverable. And the great thing about that is that essentially you're now getting 2 chances for the same piece of content to be found on search. And then the second thing, as I showed in the presentation, is you also get branding. So you saw the kind of physical imagery that a podcast produces, which typically with a website page, all you get is a link on that. Then thirdly, social is obviously hugely important. So what a lot of our clients do, and actually what we do as well, is we share audio content across our social platforms. And it's literally copy and paste, and it's automatically branded in the social platforms. So it's literally a 2-second job to distribute across there. And then on site is obviously key. So we can audify all content on site, and it gets picked up across smart speakers. So you're literally across mobile, smart speakers, and laptops, and then you're across all parts of the web. So if you use the tool appropriately, you should be getting good audience reach. But it is, our tool will create the content and distribute it, but the clients who get the maximum value out of this will also start sharing it themselves and promoting it. As we all know, the more work you put into making people aware and talking about what you do, the greater the audience and the greater response you get.
Absolutely. So with that, let me just quickly share my screen. In the webinar, currently we have Audio Harvest on a lifetime deal at PitchGround. You can just head to pitchground.com/products/audio harvest and grab your lifetime deal copy. I think it's one heck of a deal, especially for the fact that you get these credits recurring. So typically, if you are producing about, let's say, 4 articles a month, which is what we have seen in general, I think $75 worth of investment that you can make for the rest of your life for your blog is the absolute no-brainer. Please take advantage of that. The link is already given and shared. But again, you guys, I'm just sharing the link once again. Please take advantage of this. I'm also going to be setting up a case study, and I'm going to be sharing it across with you guys, where I'm going to be building up this entire audio blog with this blog and try to distribute our blog and see if we can sort of like ramp up our traffic, ramp up our user bases, because we have close to around 500,000 words of articles on our blog at the moment that has started driving a lot of SEO traffic. So any other additional bonus traffic just by spending about 10, 15, 20 minutes of time, I think is an absolute no-brainer and bonus. So that's something that we're going to be doing ourselves to ensure that we are able to push up all of these amazing pieces of content that we have. And again, distribution is key, right? Distribution is where the actual money is. It's not in producing and making. The content creation part or product creation part is only 20% of the time. Rest of the entire 80% of the time is distribution. And I think everyone should start focusing on distribution at all given stages. With that, I don't see much of the questions coming in. So with that, any other closing lines any of you have before we wrap up this webinar?
I see there's one more question from Matthias. Are there any plans to use audio from YouTube videos? Honestly, I don't know, Dominic, if you have an opinion on that, but I would say...
Yeah, it's something we're looking at, but where we're focused on at the moment is to enable people to record audio. So we're actually becoming both an AI audio and a live audio business. I have a feature request or maybe a suggestion, Dominic. I don't know if it makes sense, but I think it can be really very helpful, where let's say that any of the contents that we have generated, and it's already been generated in the audio format, right? What if we just sort of create the same audio and create a YouTube video as well, where there are those just layers? I don't know, you might have seen like some of those podcasts, right? Where the videos just have layers. That's it, right? And then the discussion is happening with one static background. Yeah.
So you might have seen that. So what if we also convert this into video, right? The same audio. So apart from distributing it across on Spotify and all of these audio platforms, we also convert this into a video with a transcript out there and using YouTube's API, we upload it over there, then Vimeo and several other video application platforms as well. Because one of the key things that the tool already is doing incredibly is converting it into an audio. If we can channelize this into further distribution channel, I think this can be game changer. Because imagine all of those YouTube videos being created on a fly, and then we have this WordPress plugin already built in, and this WordPress plugin will automatically add that YouTube video link, because this will be connected using your YouTube API, G Suite, which is API. So the upload would happen automatically. So you would have the link access to the same video. And then this gets embedded inside the blog. If this process can be automated, I see Audio Harvest being the game changer solution and probably be hitting that product market fit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great question, and it's definitely something we're looking at, and we will look at it more now. That's all I can say. It's really fair comment. Obviously, YouTube is a huge platform, huge audience. It's video, it's hugely engaging. We get it. We take that on board, and we will look at it and work out what it has to be. Is it has to have the quality, and it has to be scalable and quick.
Right. Exactly.
What I can say is that it is on our radar. We're just looking at the moment to kind of wrap up this, because what a lot of our customers want from us is not just AI, they want live recording. So that's why we've enabled upload of live recordings, and we will be looking at recording. But after that, YouTube is in our sights, and we will go back and have a look at that, and we will have a chat about that and absolutely take it on board. I think Matthias added a little bit more context to that, which is essentially the Soundwise enables you to essentially download the audio file and push it up as a podcast, which is great. It's just there's lots of great different ways to do audio. We're not, we don't do everything, and we're not the only one. What we're good at is if you want to get your audio out there at scale, cost effectively, and always on, and not having to employ anyone to do that. That's what we do amazingly well. Is lots of our customers work with us and call us their audio marketing department, because literally they don't need to employ anyone. The algorithm pushes the content out for them, and our job is to create live audio and then look at these other channels like YouTube and keep on adding. We've also been focused a bit on social, but we'll look there as well. Absolutely.
I think once that is being implemented, the chances of being discovered, especially on YouTube, is so high. That the older the platform, the older the video gets, and if it's really like well optimized and there is a good description, then the discovery becomes so much more easier. So for example, I can just end up creating a brand new channel and call it PitchGround Blogs, right? And right away, let's say if I have 200 articles, I have now created 200 videos with a click of a button using Audio Harvest, with all of those videos right there for people who would still be able to discover us over there. I think that scalability and that sort of distribution can be literally game changing.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting area. Absolutely.
The best part about
we're going to look at that
is that you can again pick up the featured image itself as a background image and just create the waves out of it. Yeah,
I think you do want more engaging video, because the reason people go to video is for that engagement. So you do need to look into that. But having said that, there is a lot of people using AI for YouTube in different ways, and some, so it's a real thing and people do it. Absolutely.
So a lot of people have actually also started using YouTube Music, right? And have started listening to a lot of podcasts on YouTube Music. And I do see sort of like YouTube heading towards that, because the audio game is only getting started, I feel.
Yeah. I mean, Joe Rogan led the charge on that.
Yeah.
I mean, he went YouTube video, and he's massive. So he's kind of led that whole conversion to YouTube and podcast on that. And it's a big market. So it is a really interesting space, and definitely one we just want to, if we do something, we want to do it well, and we want to make sure it gives value. So it's definitely there, and we're definitely going to look at it.
There's one more question coming from Matthias. He's asking, can I upload bulk audios? I have 100 of PowerNap audios right now.
So
yeah, go on, Dieter.
Yeah, so unfortunately now you cannot do that yet. Also, because even if you have multiple audio files, you still need to come up with a title and a description for each episode you want to create. So for us, that didn't make a ton of sense to like let you upload audio files in bulk. However, if you really want to do that, talk to us. Maybe we can
We can look at that.
Yeah, I think Matthias, what you'll have to do is look for something enterprisey right now, and I think Audio Harvest team can probably help you out.
But great questions, Matthias. Definitely take those on board, and
Awesome.
we'll look into it.
Awesome. guys.
In general, also, I would say if anybody is using Audio Harvest and you run into any weird issues or anything you want to do and you can't do, please talk to us. We love to hear about this. We love to help you if we can. So don't hesitate to shoot us an email.
Yeah, we have the Knowledge Hub and really quick responses there. So, working hours, we'll be back very quick. So if you have questions, it's all there on the site.
Awesome. So I think Matthias has the best question. So Matthias, by default, like, I don't know if you want to make him the winner for today for one code of Audio Harvest.
Absolutely.
Awesome, Matthias, just reach out to us. Here is my email. If you can just drop in your email to me right now, we'll credit one Audio Harvest code that will be sponsored by PitchGround. So there you go, Matthias, just reach out to me and please share your email to me in the chat below so that we can make sure that you have a registered PitchGround account with that email so that we can credit the code to your account right away. So please do this right away to ensure that this doesn't get missed out. With that, guys, we will be wrapping up this session. Dominic, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing the power of Audio Harvest and also sharing what's coming up. We're going to be distributing this webinar across with everyone. There's going to be a lot of people who have registered but couldn't show up because of time zone issues. We had like hundreds of people who had registered. So we'll be sharing them across. So we should see some very good traction coming in. So with that, we will be wrapping up this webinar. Thank you so much again for joining us. And we will be seeing you guys in the next episode. Thank you once again and have a fantastic evening, everyone. And to the other side of the world, have a fantastic day ahead. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.